Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to today's information webinar. My name is Amanda Ritzman and I work for IQS in Sweden. With me I have the call secretariat who will give you a presentation and answer any questions that you might have. So we will start with the presentation and then we will do some questions and yeah, let's go. Johannes?
Yeah, I hope you can all hear me. Amanda, can you hear me? All right,
yeah.
Okay, and see the presentation as well. Great.
Yes.
So Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Johannes Bocksteffel, and I'm together with Björn Swensby-Kurling. We are building the call secretariat for this additional call of the AirNet Co-Fund Urban Accessibility and Connectivity. So actually, this is a non-co-funded additional call, and the main focus is on managing sustainable urban accessibility. And I think you will see soon what the focus of this call actually is. This call is in comparison to the co-funded call around the small call. It is again in the framework of the JPI Urban Europe, but we have just some countries participating in this call. And this is, on the one hand, we have Austria and Sweden, so both the countries of the people of the call secretariat, but also joining our two regions of Belgium, so the Brussels capital region and Flanders region, and we have also Turkey on board. And we are also very happy that we are able to announce today that also Latvia will finally join this call with an amount of 500,000 euro. So the total budget of this call will be raised up to 4.2 million euro. But nevertheless, in comparison, of course, to the big co-funded call, this is a rather small call. But nevertheless, we are happy that also Latvia finally joined this call. And the decision was just taken yesterday by this board. And we will provide you soon on the website with an updated call text where you can also find information about participation for Latvian applicants. This will be published, I guess, during the next days. Actually, the call was opened already at the beginning of April, on the 7th exactly. The full proposal deadline is only in autumn, so the 15th of September. So you have quite some time to prepare your proposal. Then this will be followed by an eligibility check in September. And we would like to assess the projects together with the expert panel in November, and also have a final funding recommendation already also in November of this year. That means that we would then afterwards announce the results to the main applicants until the end of this year, November, December. And now the funding decision then will be made, will be published, and projects can then start beginning of next year, next January. And we plan a kickoff meeting, a first kickoff meeting for the projects in April or May next year. So this is just the overview on the timeline. As I've said before, also this call has been set up in the framework of the AirNet Co-Fund Urban Accessibility and Connectivity, which started a first call in end of 2019 and will run in total until 2024. Within this AirNet, two key terms have been used. So on the one hand, what do we understand here under this term of sustainable urban accessibility and connectivity? So that means that all activities and opportunities within a city should be reached with lower negative environmental impacts. So that's, of course, this sustainability aspect. But also then the connectivity aspect, this is the second part. So means that different routes can maybe use different modes also, and both passenger transport and also freight transport may be included in this understanding of sustainable urban accessibility and connectivity. So within this specific call, there is a specific focus, as I've already said a little bit. And this is about how to reduce mainly greenhouse gas emissions, and how to be able to really significantly reduce them. And one of those possible solutions is about options for managing the access to city areas and regions via different measures, and some of them will be presented a little bit later. So mainly that means that the possibility really to reach the cities or the city centers are in a way managed. And this means that traffic can be avoided, and also then as a result of this, also public space can be also redistributed, because this is always limited. We all know that. And then there are new possibilities also to redistribute this urban public space. And we will give some examples how this could look like then when we come to the themes and the core topics. On the other hand, so besides the themes, we would like to have projects that are what we call innovation orientated. So that means not just research projects, but projects that also really address tools and address models, business models, operating models, policies. So that might be technological solutions, that might be in this frame here, regulatory measures, but also, for example, incentives for behavioral change, or also actually physical models of physical reconfiguration of the road infrastructure. So that means we really would like to expand with this call the toolbox for management of the urban accessibility. And that's also the reason why we would like you to integrate relevant urban stakeholders. And I will also say more about that a little bit later. And in the end, all of those projects should support cities when they're trying to conceptualize measures of urban accessibility, when they try to pilot those things, replicate those things, or scale them up. So actually, that's also the reason why we want you all to include also relevant stakeholders, because this shall be really something that is usable for the cities and for the city regions. So actually, there are 4 topics, of course, all related to these measures for managing the urban accessibility. They differ a little bit, I would say, in their focus. The first one is about how can untapped potentials of measures to manage urban accessibility can be utilized. How can measures also be mainstreamed? And this has, and I tried here in this presentation, this is just taken from the call text, and I tried to highlight some major issues here. So of course, it means that those measures of access management mean in the end that that not all types of mobility will still have free access to the cities, which also leads to the fact that congestion can be reduced by this measure, air quality can be improved, and also, of course, livability can be improved in those city areas. So this concept is normally known as the Urban Vehicle Access Regulations, or UVARs. And we want to know in this specific subtopic, how can those kind of regulations go, for example, hand in hand with complementary measures, for example, strengthening the public transport, strengthening the active mobility, alternative forms of mobility. So you could say, how can those kind of access management regulations can be embedded in a wider set of other measures? And some potential measures are listed under the key questions here. So, for example, what could be innovative solutions for the redistribution of the street space, for urban logistics, for other ways of sustainable urban mobility, like, for example, micro-mobility and so on. So, and these are all some kind of examples. So possible themes for your projects are not limited by those suggestions, but these are more or less suggestions that the countries brought in and that were proposed by the different not only funding agencies, but also ministries behind those funding agencies. So this is the one thing, actually a little bit, you could say, combining these UVAR regulations with other complementary measures. But of course, also an important topic is participation of the citizens, participation, of course, also of stakeholders in a way. And that means that the second topic tries to address really this issue. So how can measures to manage urban accessibility can be made more accepted and more inclusive, participatory? So that could include, for example, new tools for communication, to motivate people, to engage them, for example, also to work with local stakeholder groups, with some bottom-up initiatives and so on. So, and again, you find here some examples, like always here. So all of those examples are just ideas of the people behind this call. But of course, also other ideas addressing those topics are always welcome. It could also, for example, include digitalization issues, governance principles, and so on, that address, of course, this aspect of participatory engagement of citizens. Then we have another topic that is called making measures for managing urban accessibility more agile. So this mainly addresses this agility aspect. Yeah, actually, could there be ideas of dynamic tools, dynamic measures? So not just to say, for example, that the same regulation is going on for all of the time, but for example, you have some different regulations for dependent on traffic volumes, dependent on, for example, emission limits and so on. And again, we give here some examples what this could include. So this is a more, perhaps you could say, procedural, perhaps aspect of the theme that you could address within this topic. And there is a last and fourth topic we called making those measures for managing urban accessibility more effective, robust, and impactful. So that means mainly how can also these measures brought even more into the urban routines. Could, for example, city administrations could new tools also be developed for them? Could also new instruments developed together with them and for them? For example, how to make all of this transparent to the decision makers. Also, perhaps also to analyze different aspects of such access management measures and so on. So I would say this theme is a little bit more directed towards you could say the governance aspects and how to make this whole concept even more useful for the city administrations. Generally, perhaps before I come to the types of the projects, we want you to address at least one of those topics, but of course they have a lot of interconnections, and of course you can also find ways of combining several of those topics with each other. So you don't have to just focus on one. They are all interrelated, and we are also happy if you come up with project ideas that would in a way combine some of those aspects. So when we now come to the project types, I've already said that we are looking here for more applied research projects. So either what we call normally in the frame of the JPR Urban Europe, the applied urban research, or the urban innovation implementation. So means that as applied research, that could be proof of concepts, research to prove the feasibility of a concept, small scale prototypes, for example. Then if we come more to the implementation and the innovation, of course, this would mean that you're working with already prototypes that are tested in a real environment, and also at least to some degree, you could also do a kind of first demonstration of some aspects. Of course, what is not included here is, so there is a certain, I would say, border regarding the TAL levels, but first demonstration could also be done under this type of the innovation or implementation. Usually, the funding agencies decide if a combination is also possible. So this is something you should also check with your funding agency. generally we allowed also in the past that the different actors in the different countries could also combine types, but this is something that you should then in the end also discuss with your agency what is possible or what is not possible. And we also want you to indicate that in the work plan, so that you also assign to each of the work packages to what of those categories, either applied research or innovation, can it be assigned to. The eligible entities, this is quite, as I think usual here, this is quite a broad range. Of course, you have on the one hand the private sector, so private companies, but also, of course, research centers and universities of applied science, but also at least some agencies can fund public bodies like the municipalities or other administrative bodies, or even other non-profit legal entities, for example, like NGOs or other kind of associations. But what is always important that you have to check really with the national agency which entity is eligible in which country, because this differs. And I will also give some examples how this could look like and what you should take into account soon. Just again, these are the funding agencies that are participating in this call. Finally, so actually we have now in the end 7 funding agencies from 6 countries, including now Latvia, and the new abbreviation is now the Latvian Council of Science. So it is, as far as I know, this organization is the follower of an earlier organization, and this is now what is called the Latvian Council of Science. And I guess most of the other agencies should be already familiar to you. What is new here is within Urban Europe is FLYO for the Flanders region. So this is an agency that is, as far as I know, participating for the first time here. And we have some requirements also regarding the transnational eligibility, and also some specific conditions that are important besides the national regional eligibility criteria. Of course, at first, this is a transnational call. So you have to include at least people, or not people, but organizations or applicants from at least 2 of the different countries participating in this call. So that means it would not be sufficient if an organization from the Brussels region and from Flanders region would cooperate. So this would not fulfill this criterion. That means that also another country has to be included. Not those 2 regions of Belgium, they would not be sufficient. But as it is a small call, we have just said that 2 participants are the minimum requirement, and this is at least what is needed on the transnational level. But of course, sometimes you have also specific conditions on national level. And then we want you to include one topic-specific stakeholder, and this might be either really a co-applicant, that means a partner in this project, or what we call always a cooperation partner, that is somebody who indicates his, or not only indicates, but also really proves his interest in this project via a letter of intent. This is also what is stated here in the 3rd bullet point. So this is another possibility. And those stakeholders, we have listed some different organizations that we would like to see in the project. So it might be on the level of the cities, or also, of course, regional authorities are possible. So city, municipality, or regional authority. That means this is more the administrative, you could say, level. But then also organizations would be possible that are specifically in charge or involved in some transport or mobility related infrastructure or services in a city, municipality, or region. Or also a possibility would be to include an NGO that is related to transport and mobility issues. And it means you don't have to include those always as a co-applicant, because we know that not all of the agencies really can fund those kind of organizations, but at least they have to be included then as a cooperation partner. And as I've said before, the cooperation partners should provide a letter of intent where they also say, okay, why they want to be involved and how they can profit from this project. And we need this as a proof of their interest in the project. Then another issue is that we don't want that the project is dominated by a certain country. So we ask you to look at your total amount of personal months that are, and it should, an S should be added, I think here, that is something I missed. So not more than 70% of the total personal months in the project should be assigned to one of the partners. So or actually from several applicants of one country. So 70%, that is also what is used sometimes in other kind of calls. But here we want to look at the personal months and not at the costs, because the costs sometimes differ quite a lot between the different countries. Then as the project coordinator, so that is actually what is sometimes also called the lead PI. These people can only participate in a maximum of 2 proposals and only once as the project coordinator of a main applicant. Of course, also you have to justify why all of these partners should participate in your project. And as I've said before, we also like you to prove really the interest and also the active involvement of all partners that you foresee in your consortium. And of course, there are several rules for the submission to be followed. For example, that of course you have to submit the application before the deadline, and you can find those regulations in chapter 2.3 of the call text. And I just want to quickly give you a short idea how those transnational and national eligibility criteria, sorry for that, in a way are interconnected. So those criteria that I have just presented, these were the transnational criteria, for example, that you have to include at least 2 eligible applicants from at least 2 of the participating countries. But then the different countries might also have some other rules. For example, Austria also always requires that in our transnational projects, always a company must be included. So this could be a requirement. And this is something you should always check then with your national regional funding organization. Some agencies just allow the participation only for some types of organizations, like, for example, research organizations or universities and companies, but for example, not for municipalities. So this is also something you should check. It could be, and these are just some general examples. It doesn't mean that that this is really valid for the countries that are involved here, but please check really in detail these national annexes to see if there are some specific regulations that have to be followed by the specific agencies. Yeah, sometimes you have to submit your national application in parallel until the deadline. Or I have said, for example, some countries do not allow that municipalities can be funded and so on. So what is really important here, so as it said here, the national criteria shown here are fictional, but please always contact your national funding agency. And if you have questions and if something is not clear regarding those quite sometimes also complicated eligibility criteria in this transnational setting. And this is just a fictional example how this could look like. So there might be some main applicant who coordinates the whole project. In this case, we thought this could be a city. So perhaps not really a very realistic example, but let's say this is the main applicant coming from country B. Then we have an organization that is called Urban Enterprises. This is a co-applicant from country A. Then there is also a university from a country C. So in this case, they would have included even 3 of the participating countries. And then you have also some cooperation partners like a region or this organization Hamlet of Blankwood. So, and they should then always describe via an LOE why they want to cooperate within this project. So for example, in our case here, this region could be the one urban stakeholder or urban or regional stakeholder that we want you to include in the project. And in this case, this would not be a co-applicant, but just a cooperation partner. But as I've said before, what is really important is the question if all those partners are really eligible on a national level, and if then in the end, what is the result of your individual national applications, if this is eligible also on the transnational level. And you have to check that both with our transnational criteria and then, of course, also with your agencies, in this case of those 3 countries. And at this point, I think I would make a first stop here, and we would ask some questions that we received in the chat, and then come to the submission system and also some other information about matchmaking and so on. So we have got first a question that I see here about universities from the United Kingdom. So unfortunately, the United Kingdom is not participating in this call, so they are not eligible via this call. But of course, what is always also possible is that as a cooperation partner, this is a partner that has no funding or financing via this specific call, but could perhaps finance his activities by own sources or by perhaps another kind of funding. But generally, the UK itself is not participating, unfortunately, in this call. Then we have a question if institutions from outside the partner countries could be involved. Yes, of course, generally this is possible, but generally not, again, with funding from this call. Unless a certain country would allow that also organizations from other countries could be funded. But normally, I have to say, this is not the case. Normally, you have then provide your own funding, perhaps from another national program, or or you would say, okay, we are interested in this idea and we want to just cooperate as a cooperation partner. Okay, I think this was then also answered, and Tim also replied and tries to investigate if this British university could participate. And then I think this is some content-wise question from Stan. Can demonstration of urban capsule pipeline be included? Pipes underground, capsules diameter. Okay. Okay. So I would say actually my understanding, but perhaps also we could hear what Björn is thinking about that. I would not really see that within the focus of this call, because this is actually a kind of another technology. So we are really here asking for measures of kind of limitations of access and not really other technology, I would say. Björn, would you like to add something here?
No, I would agree to you in general there, Johannes. I think also this is a bit maybe off topic from what we are aiming for here.
So, of course, an interesting question as well, but not within the framework of this call, I would say. So this is really related to these kind of access management measures. Okay, then a definition of the urban accessibility. Yeah, I can again repeat that there is some kind of generic, I would say, definition at the beginning of the call text, what this ARENet understands under this term of urban accessibility. But I would say in the context of this specific call also, really the focus is again on those access management measures. So I would say regarding this specific call, I think this can be answered in this way, that your project should really concentrate on this kind of measures of cities and regions, how to really manage access to the city or to the city region, right? Okay, is there one document to find the different funding rates? There is no document where you can find this at one glance for all of the participating countries. But you just go, you have the different websites always announced in the national annex, and can just look into your specific country you're coming from, what is the funding rate for that. But I would say generally in most of those calls, we have some kind of standard also funding rates. So for example, in our case, it's always between minimum of 35 and a maximum of 85%. So this is not differing from other calls generally with cooperative kinds of projects. So another question, participatory strategies and acceptance. A consortium between cities and national actors, would this be suitable? Okay, so generally I would say yes. So this is, I think, exactly what we are aiming at, that this is a kind of mixed consortium, including both research actors, but also actors really from the city, from the region. Yeah, the question is a little bit perhaps also what is really then in the focus of these participatory approaches. Yeah, I read here lending and leading design processes of change from local levels. I don't know, Björn, do you know this specific organization, perhaps? National Center of Architecture?
Yes, I do. It's a national agency in Sweden, and I know Ola as well, actually. I think in general, yes. Just as long as you talk here about Ola, you write about design processes, etc. And I think as long as you can find a connection to the topics of the call, if you can sort of develop or elaborate on how the design process would connect to the call, it would make sense. I mean, once again, it is up to the experts who will decide on what they, I mean, who will decide on what to fund and not. But yeah, in general,
possible. Thanks, Björn. So then we have again a question about some kind of consortium building. So Bülent asked if it's possible to have included from one country, let's say a tech company, and from another country, a municipality and a tech company. So if those organizations are fundable in the different countries, then I think this would be a potential pattern that would work. So you have the two countries included, and you have two companies in this case, and at least one municipality that would be then the urban stakeholder. But of course, it could also happen that one of the other companies is also would represent some of the other types, like for example, this transport-related undertakings, for example, like so what is the specific name for that? Infrastructure providers, for example. If this could also, yeah, that would also be a possibility. But generally, that would work with this minimum consortium. Of course, it does not mean that you always have to just focus on two countries. Of course, we also like to see projects that have perhaps a broader range of participants, but the minimum would be fulfilled here in this case. Okay, if the question about if two cities are needed, so from a transnational point of view, not a single city would suffice. So this is true, but on the other hand, a little bit the question is if there is, I have to say I don't know that by heart, but might be that a specific funding agency wants to see also a city from their own country to be part of this consortium. So this is also something you should check with your national agency if there is a specific requirement to include a city on the national level. Actually, it would also then, so if just one country would ask for that, then also it would fulfill the rule that you have at least one city participating. And then we have, I would say, and I would then end also this first round and come also perhaps to the more formal parts. Antoine writes, he works for an NGO that occupies empty buildings and gives access to cheap spaces for any type of projects. Increase access to the urban environment and the making of cities by citizens. Okay, so that is a bit a difficult question. The question is really in what way would that really relate to? Of course, yes, you you would hinder access to the urban environment. But the question is if this is something that I think what would be needed here, if this is just the NGO engaged in that form. And the question is there support also? I think what is always important for us is also a little bit that there is kind of support also from the public. So is there support for these specific activities from the city? Is there support from other urban actors? I don't know. So I think to me it would perhaps be a bit at the edge, actually, I would say. Björn, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you have a point. And also I'm thinking that we are maybe primarily focusing on the sort of the spaces between the buildings and not so much the inside of the buildings in this call. It's
right.
the city, the streets, part of the city between the buildings. So that's also how I sort of think regarding
and you mean, okay, there comes another question. You mean the theme? If you mean the theme of cheaper rents, for example, I think this is not actually a topic that is really addressed here. Yeah. So with public space, we really mean here public space, as Björn just said, between the buildings. So actually, in what ways are on the street level, in what way is the street space really used? But it's not related to the topic of housing or to rental issues and such things, actually. So I think actually this is then off topic, I would say here. Okay, so then a small tech company from the Netherlands providing digital tools. Yeah, Netherlands is not, this is right, this is not a partner. So perhaps the only way would be if you find another partner you could liaise with and you could work as a subcontractor perhaps, or again with own funds. So some countries allow that also some subcontracting is allowed to a certain extent. So for example, Austria would allow that. But in that way, it would be possible, but or again with own funding, but not really as an organization that is funded by this call. And finally, Ernst asked about possible to fund a pilot of physical construction with e.g. e-cargo bikes. I think generally yes. So we said piloting is possible as well, but of course it should relate again to these access management measures. So I think just the demonstration of what could e-cargo bikes contribute. So I think here there should be a clear connection again to this topic of access management within cities. So is this then something you would for example, propose as a kind of alternative, but then also would that mean that then there are other kind of barriers together with this e-cargo bike use, yeah, for example. So I think just as it is written here, I do not clearly see really the relation to the access management a little bit. This is what is missing here, but generally a pilot, yes, would be possible. Okay, and related to Antoine's question and your answer, I guess that projects related to tactical urbanism are okay. I would again say generally yes, but of course the question is what is the focus? If the focus is again related to those topics that we just explained, then I think it's fine. But it has to, it has to interrelate with these urban access management issues. Okay, so I would say we close now this first round and I give you some more information about the submission process itself. So again, in this call, we use the Austrian system, the eCall system. And I think some of you know that already. So the transnational application has to be done via the eCall. You have the URL here presented, and you have two possibilities. So either you have already once registered within the system, then you can just log in, or you have to register for the first time. Then of course you have to fill in your basic data on your organization and to create a login, a first login to this. So this is how it starts. Then you will see a page after you have successfully logged in. You will see a page where you can select different calls. And what is important here that as a first step, you click on this button, create a new project. And then you have, so this is actually the application, then create an application. And then you have to select a call. And what is important here, you have listed two possibilities, because on the national level, also Austrian applicants have to submit a second application 1 week later. So please just concentrate as the transnational for the transnational call on this issue, on this item here that is called the joint call, which is the NUAC non-co-funded edition call, and not the one that is just for Austrian applicants as an additional application that is needed here. And then there is also a third step that you need to perform at a certain point, that is completing your master data. So that is more information about organization. And this is also something that you have to complete. For the lead partner, that's a bit more information that has to be entered. And for the project partners, so the co-applicants, that's just, I think, mainly the contact person and some organizational data that you can, again, also use from your account data. Okay, then next is you will find first page that gives you some information about the call again and presents the topics. And what is important here, that then when you try to enter the different information, then you have to then you have here those different tabs where you can enter the different data. And I would to point out two things. So the system works in German and in English, and in the case that it should show the wrong language, and just click on, in this case, this is the English version, so you can click just to change it again to German or to Deutsch. But if it's in German, then it would show you here English, and you could change the view to English. And then a second thing is that we also offer a tutorial, an online tutorial that is quite detailed, and you can also access this tutorial by clicking here on this tutorial button. You see here now when the main applicant starts with his application, so you have to at least first, for example, select the type of your project. So is it now the applied research or predominantly this applied research? Then you can select the different topics and so on. Two things, sorry, I will highlight it later. So there is where, this is where you start with your with your application. Okay, this is interesting because this has moved. I don't know why. So different parts are not needed. So this is mainly coming from national calls, and you don't need to go into those details. You don't need to enter bank details. You don't need to enter a staff pool. Also user management, and that cross should be here. And also this, the minimis 8, this is not needed in your case. So you can skip those tabs and just concentrate on master data. And what you have to fill in is, because this is required for all of the applicants, but just for some kind of organizations, are those annual data here. This is related to some basic financial data. So actually, this was now the section on, so we changed here a little bit, and I can perhaps show that again. So before, no, it was not shown here, but you were before in the project section here, and this showed you what has to be entered in this organizational data, and you have to click here on finalize, and then all your organizational data is entered, and then you can again move to this projects tab and can work again on the project. And this is just how it looks like when you want to invite a partner. So under partners, you can create an invitation for this partner. And what pops up now is then you have to, first you have to enter the email address of this partner. And then you have, here's the email address, and then, sorry, and then you have to name just the organization of this partner. And then you can also select a role. Is it a scientific partner or a practice partner? And then you can, via this create partner, button, you can just invite this partner to your project. And what the partner has to enter, that is quite, I will just show you that first. I think, no, it's not, sorry. The partner has just to enter some organizational data and nothing else, but also has to finalize this application. And this is then in the end how it looks like for the main applicant again. So some important issues here are that you have to upload, of course, the proposal, that you have, that all those different tabs in the end show a green light instead of a red light, then everything is entered. And then in the end, just click on finalize, and this would finalize your application. Okay, and I think I will not, and if you have more questions related to that, you can write to me and send me your question, and we try our best to help you with the submission system if it's needed. Just some small reference regarding the evaluation criteria. There are 3 main criteria on the excellence or the intellectual merit of your proposal, on the impact and user engagement, and on the quality and efficiency of the project implementation. And there are a lot of sub criterions that are assessed by the panel. But I will not, I think, go into the details of this here. You will find it in the call text, and just to give you an idea of what the expert panel is looking at, and what you should also have in mind. And there's in the call text, there is always a small explanation what is meant by this specific sub-criterion as well. Okay, and I think now we come finally to Amanda's slides.
Yes, thank you, Johannes. This part is just about the community of JFE Urban Europe, because we take a lot of pride in the fact that this is not just a call and then you won't see us again. This is a community and you're welcome to join. We have a big network of many different people from different types of organizations, different stakeholders, and we do hold some different activities. There probably won't be some specific activities for just this call, but you are welcome to join activities for the bigger INRAC call as well, and any activities that show up on our website. Yes, next slide. Yes, so for this call specifically, this is the information webinar, but we also have a LinkedIn group that is made for matchmaking. So if you have an excellent idea, but you don't have a partner, you should join the LinkedIn group where you can find said partner and work on an application together. I will post a link to the call websites in the chat, and you will find the LinkedIn group there, but you can also search for it on LinkedIn. And the group name is Networking in Innovations for Managing Sustainable Urban Accessibility. I will let you in as soon as you apply.
So thank you, Amanda, for this. And finally, so I think we presented ourselves a little bit in the beginning. So me and Björn, we are really at your hand if you have some further questions as the call secretariat. So please just write us a mail, or you can also try to call us. And if you can't reach us, we will try to contact you again and get back to you. And of course, what I also, I think, said several times, also contact really your national agency for further information, as this might be also relevant. You have at the end of the call text also all the national contact points, and also on the website there is a specific document summing up the national contact persons that you can download, and you have the data of the colleagues from the other agencies presented there as well. So, and finally, we are now, I think, more or less at the end of the official presentation and would have time for some more questions. And we have, in the meantime, got 2 other questions. So one is about relation between this ENUAC network or NYOC AirNet, and the UIC2 use smart cities marketplace, including the urban air mobility. So I guess this is targeting the question if urban air mobility would also be part of this call. Is this right? Peter, perhaps you could drop again a line. Actually, we really focused here more on the mobility on the ground, I would say. So this air mobility was not really targeted in the call. Yeah, so actually, I would again say here, this is a little bit off our topics, but perhaps we should go into more detail and see what your proposition would be. But generally, I would say this is more related to mobility really on the ground level in the cities. The EU's smart cities marketplace. So of course, if there are interconnections to already finished activities or ongoing activities related to other initiatives, I think this is generally always welcome, I would say. But related really to specifically air mobility, I think this is not really our target here. And another question, do industrial areas also enter urban areas? Can a project related to the monitoring for industry be submitted? No, I don't think so, actually. So this would not relate to our topic here. So just monitoring of greenhouse gas emissions is not what we are aiming at. So we are aiming at measures or at, as I've said several times already, so we are aiming at options and solutions for transport in cities, and not just some kind of yeah, emission monitoring or things like that. So this is not really in the focus of this call, I would say. Okay. But we would still have some more time for your questions if there are some.
I could take the opportunity and also I also posted in the chat here for interested Swedish actors. We will also have a Swedish information webinar like this, but in Swedish, if you would like to participate there as well. And maybe there will also be a possibility to ask questions, etc. It will be on the 15th. No, sorry, 13th. Correct. Friday the 13th at 10 to 11 in the morning. And you can find the link there in the chat.
Oh, okay, but I missed now that also in the chat. I don't know, Amanda, did we miss other questions that were raised in the chat?
No. Everyone has asked their questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
And here's another one.
There's another one. Yeah, how many projects will be granted? Is there a limited number? Yeah, of course, there are limits mostly on the national level regarding the different project sizes in the different countries. And I think in total with that, we would like to fund, I think something between 4 and 7 projects, if I'm right. But I have to say, so it's generally it's of course a rather small call. But taking into account what the different 4 to 5 projects. Actually, now we have also some money from Latvia, so perhaps a bit more. And also, I think countries would seek if there are really a lot of good projects, if we can find some additional funding, but this cannot be guaranteed. So generally, the range is in this quite small call, I would say in total about 5 projects with the participants from the different countries, of course. But there is no specific limited number, but there are some maxima on the national or regional level that are stated in the annex again. Okay. No other questions at the moment. So.
Yeah, no more questions. To answer the question that you might have, but you haven't asked, the presentation will be uploaded to the website later. and a recording of the webinar will be uploaded as well. So you can send this to your colleagues and such. Do we have any final questions for the call secretariat? No?
Just some noise from urban transport, I guess.
Yes. We're in the middle of central Stockholm here.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot. And
Thank you all.
Amanda,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Björn.
And I hope to see a lot of interesting applications. Good luck.
Yes, good luck everyone and join the LinkedIn group. Bye-bye.
Me too. Bye-bye. All the best.
Ciao.